I won't waste your time with a long-winded intro, and there will be no major spoilers ahead. Let's get into it. The First Berserker Kazan is an absolutely incredible game, and I want to be straightforward with you. I think it's one of the best Souls-likes ever made, maybe the best. It's a game that combines the best elements from the original FromSoft Souls games, and its peers like Lies of P. I didn't play Bloodborne because I don't own a PS4. I'm not a fan of the Neo games. Neo 1 just didn't click for me, and I haven't played the acclaimed Neo 2 because of that. However, I can say with certainty that Kazan is the best Souls-like from the games that I have played. Parrying in Sekiro is one of the best feelings you can get in any game ever. The risk-reward of pulling off a perfect parry is unmatched. Until Kazan, that is. I played the greatsword and relied on perfect parries, called Brink Guards in this game, about 95% of the time. It absolutely blew my mind how balanced everything felt. Like the game was built with exactly my playstyle in mind. But it absolutely was not built with just my playstyle in mind. The game has guarding, perfect guarding, dodging, perfect dodging, 3 fully fleshed out weapons, each with their individual skill trees, a common skill tree to improve Kazan's base abilities, a Devil Trigger style transformation called Phantom Form, and tons of gear that improves your attributes, adds another layer of player expression, and even grants you special moves that you can shape your build around. I am absolutely baffled and blown away by how the game balanced all of this. Devs did a stellar job making sure
all of this just works. It's not, I'm not kidding.
It all flows. Everything just clicks wonderfully. I think a universal experience for pretty much anyone coming from Souls games into Kazan is learning that this game isn't just about blocking and dodging like Dark Souls. It's not even about getting into the rhythm of parrying like Sekiro. It's about abusing the shit out of every enemy and boss you come across. You can Brink Dodge and Brink Guard your way to victory, but the most efficient and fun way to play Kazan is finding openings where you can weave in massive combos that absolutely chunk away the enemy's HP bar. Probably the most common criticism I saw online was how beefy and tanky bosses can be. I won't say that it's unwarranted. I absolutely see how people could think that. But, again, I think this game is balanced around a more proactive approach from the player. This game expects you to dodge or guard while slowly learning the boss and figuring out the best time to bust out a combo that chains normal attacks and spirit-consuming skills. For those of you who don't know, spirit is earned by doing various actions like blocking, dodging, and attacking, and it allows you to use special moves unlocked on your skill tree. When I was putting my build together, I focused a lot on abilities that would give me spirit points for brink guarding, attacking, and brutal attacks, which are the massive attacks you get for breaking an enemy's posture. I also took a skill that increases my damage if I take damage while charging an attack, and a skill that grants spirit points for taking damage. You can quickly see where I'm going with this build. Brink Guarding gives me spirit points, taking damage lets me do more damage and gives me spirit points. At pretty much any point in a boss's combo, I could bust out my own large combo to decimate them. But still, I felt a lot of the time my damage was lacking, or the bosses would just walk out of my charging moves. That is until I took a skill that changed absolutely everything. On my skill tree, there was an ability called Phantom Knight's Veil. This skill, when used, lets me radiate a damaging aura whenever I charge an attack. And there it was. Suddenly, bosses would get staggered as I charged, slowly losing HP and stamina before my biggest attacks connected with their skulls. It was an absolute game changer for me, and I wish I discovered this ability sooner. I haven't tried the other weapons because I was so enthralled by the greatsword, but I expect this to be the same for both the dual wield and the spear. From what I've seen online, people are enjoying them all equally, with the greatsword and spear being standouts. I'm not alone in saying that Kazan has the best greatsword moveset out of any Souls-like. It's chunky, hits hard as hell, with satisfying audio design and feedback. But it's not slow or cumbersome. Kazan with a greatsword is exactly, and I mean exactly, how I would imagine Guts wielding his Dragon Slayer. It's crazy to me how the FromSoft Souls games, which are directly inspired by Berserk, tend to ignore the ferocity and speed behind Guts' attacks. In the manga, Guts isn't slow with his sword movements. If anything, he's often described as too quick for normal humans to keep up with. In one panel, we see Guts grabbing his sword and blocking multiple crossbow bolts after they're already halfway toward him. You can see his hand isn't even on the sword in the first panel. That feeling of going berserk is missing from Souls games. And I understand why. It's for balance, for game feel, to differentiate greatswords from other weapon types. Still, even though I understand it, I don't think I can justify it moving forward. Kazan has completely ruined greatswords for me. That's how much I love the greatsword in this game. I don't think I'll ever be able to use a slow, winding greatsword after this, and I hope future Souls-likes take a deep look at Kazan's combat system before designing their weapon movesets. Seriously, Kazan's weapon and skill trees allow for such a deep level of self-expression. The closest systems in terms of creativity and customization I can think of is Slice of P's weapon building system, and even that lacks in comparison to Kazan. There are so many ways to customize your build, and so many skills to weave into your combos that the combat system becomes downright addicting. You're just waiting for that skill bar to fill up so you can get a new skill point, unlock a new ability, and start experimenting with where exactly to place it in your combo chain. Something I want to point out is that I'm not belittling any game to prop Kazan up. That is not my intention whatsoever. Every game I've mentioned so far had to exist with all its brilliance and flaws for us to get here. The way I see it, Kazan is an amalgamation of everything that's come before. It's like Sekiro, Monster Hunter, and Dark Souls had a threesome, and the result was this berserk child. Speaking of threesomes, Souls games, in my opinion, are built on three main aspects: combat, level design, and the bosses. The combat in Kazan is an 11 out of 10 for me, but how about the other two?
Your body and soul, they belong to us.
Fuck. The bosses, and I mean all of the bosses, are incredible. This is one of the best, if not the best, boss roster in any Souls game ever. There wasn't a single boss I thought was bullshit, badly designed, or too oppressive. Even if in my first few tries I was losing my mind fighting a boss, I was always motivated to go back and try again. I never felt like I died out of pure bullshit. I always felt like I could have done better, reacted faster, optimized my combo chain further. I swear, the fourth boss in this game, Volbanio, took me 2 hours of non-stop grinding. Despite dying 2 or 3 times with him one hit away, I never felt mad or frustrated to the point of quitting. I was enjoying the fight so much, and every single time I died, it was because I got greedy, messed up a really important guard, or looked at chat like an idiot. There's a lot of care and ingenuity in how these bosses are designed. I never felt angry or punished, because the game cleverly pushes you into retrying bosses while rewarding you instead of punishing you as you learn. First, there are absolutely no loading screens. You die, you click a button, you respawn. Boom. Zero downtime. You don't get to sit in loading screens stewing in your failure. The game instantly plops you back in, and if you're anything like me, you instantly get back into the swing of things. Quite literally swinging your sword too hard and fast to give a shit about the death you just had. Second, the game always gives you Lacrima, which is the equivalent of Souls, or attempting a boss. This has been tried in other Souls-likes, but it's never felt as good as it does here. It's simple and absolutely genius. You fight the boss, you learn the boss, you get rewarded with experience, allowing you to level up between attempts. It feels great, and it incentivizes you to keep fighting and learning instead of dropping the pause to farm elsewhere for hours. Third, and most important to me, is that most of the time there is no freaking run back. Runbacks are a pain in my ass. When I'm fighting a difficult boss, the last thing I need is to run a marathon through 50 enemies, draining my health and sanity in the process. I understand runbacks have their time and place, but I felt them being slowly phased out in favor of smart shortcuts or checkpoints right before the boss door. Kazan continues this trend, letting you instantly jump back into the fight. I've also noticed that the devs tend to teach you the boss's moveset as you progress through a level. By the time I reached the 4th boss, I found myself reacting intuitively to his wind-up attacks. I quickly realized this was because the level had incorporated these attacks throughout, subconsciously preparing me for what was to come. I absolutely loved this. It made my progress through the level feel that much more meaningful, and rewarded me for fighting every enemy until I mastered them, instead of just running through everything. Of course, the boss design isn't without negatives. While I didn't think any boss was bad, they're not all the same level of quality. Looking at Elden Ring, most bosses are significantly larger than you. Even human bosses are upscaled. That's good design in a third-person perspective, because it lets you see and react to their moves. Nice. Nice. Ooh, that's smooth. Kazan often pits you against human-sized bosses, some even smaller than you, making their combos near impossible to see. Despite this, I never found it too annoying because those attacks are rhythmic. Once you Brink Guard the first hit, the rest are easy to predict. The game also rewards good stamina management, letting you block through these attacks without HP penalty, if you haven't learned to dodge or Brink Guard them yet. The boss battles in Kazan are epic. Anime levels of epic. That's hype as fuck, and it had me shaking in my seat when a boss does an unexpected transformation, or comes back from the death. Yes, that can happen. But the epicness does need to be toned down in terms of visual clutter for some bosses. The third boss, Viper, is a major barrier for most players. Iron Pineapple called it a millennia level boss, and I think that's true for many. One thing that makes Viper so difficult is the Concert Radon level of visual fuckery in his second phase. When I mastered phase 1 and could breeze through it like it was Genichiro, phase 2 threw me off every time, mainly because I couldn't see shit, but again, the boss design is actually so good that by guarding, learning the moves, and falling into rhythm, I could predict and react to the boss's attacks. Phase 2 actually became quite easy, easier than phase 1, once you get the hang of it and learn the telegraphs. Does that excuse playing whack-a-mole in the dark against a dragon god? No. But it could have been much worse. It is worse later on with some late-game bosses, but this one aspect definitely could stand to be improved. I can't see shit, bro. What the fuck? Before we wrap up the boss section, I just want to express my undying hatred for mages and sorcery users. Truly, as a greatsword enjoyer, there is no one I despise more. In fact, when I play Dota 2, I only pick anti-mage because I hate mages. And anyone who hates mages is my homie. In fact, I hate mages so much that I think we should bring back the Salem witch trial. Sorry, got off track there. Anyway, mages suck ass, and that's a fact of the universe. Kazan does the unforgivable sin of shoving multiple mage fights in a row down your throat. But I will swallow my pride and say that these fights are the golden standard for mage boss design. Your weapon of choice plays a huge part in your enjoyment of these fights. As a greatsword user, I was running out of stamina by the time I caught up to these magic-spewing abominations. But once I started applying elements to my weapon, got the hang of closing the gap while dodging, and putting points into dodge stamina cost reduction, the fights became a cakewalk. It's a welcome change of pace from fighting swordsmen, demons, and beasts. Though I will say it would have been better if the mage fights were spaced out instead of back-to-back. I think this was intentional though, to prepare you for the final fight, which is a multi-phase epic amalgamation of every enemy and mechanic in the game. The first phase of the final boss, in particular, is what I would call peak mage boss design. It was the hardest phase for me to master, but the game is fair in making mages staggerable and easy to posture break. Once I got the hang of it, I was deleting the boss in less than 5 minutes per attempt. Without spoiling anything, the final boss fight can result in 3 different endings. If you've been following the story, you might have different feelings about what's going on. You're presented with a final choice that determines how many phases the boss has and which ending you get. The game is new, so like I said, I won't be spoiling anything. But I will say that it's good to have another Soulslike with a clear narrative structure. Kazan explains the story decently enough, though there's still a lot of lore hidden in notes. I know hidden lore is the classic FromSoft approach, but for me, it's something I could do without. Don't get me wrong, I love Dark Souls lore. I even have the dark sign tattooed on my arm for God's sake. But I won't pretend I understood jack shit about Dark Souls before I finished it and watched lore videos. The story in Kazan isn't as good as Lies of P or Sekiro, my GOAT, but it's still serviceable and deserves more attention, in the hinted sequel, if we're fortunate enough to get one. Like Lies of P, Kazan's story unfolds in a way where you actually understand what you're doing. There's a clear narrative, and the NPCs you meet become part of your journey. Not all of them are important, or even good characters, but some, Best Girl LMA, felt great to have around. Their interactions lifted the dark, grim tone, and I really cared about them. I went out of my way to do their side quests, and when their stories ended, it hit me. El baño, please! El baño, please! El baño? El baño? No! No, this can't be real! El baño! El baño! Last but not least, let's talk about the level design. Kazan's levels get the job done, but none of them particularly blew me away. I like how the levels reward you for being observant, using your javelin to take out enemies and make encounters less tricky, keeping an eye out for soul stones to upgrade your healing or lacrima game, and listening to sound cues to find jars.
Thank you.
Not to mention how the game rotates its enemy factions to keep things fresh. It reminds me of Half-Life. You face 1 or 2 factions per level, and the game quickly swaps them out, introducing new enemy types within each faction to maximize variety. These factions are humans, dragonkin, spiders, undead, demons, and beasts. Plus ghost variants, though I wouldn't call those a separate faction. The levels themselves are fine. Like I said, nothing too special, but they get the job done. One thing the game suffers from is the sameness of mid to late game levels. It's one ruined city or keep after another, and the game does little to introduce new level mechanics until the final mission, which adds a minor but welcome twist with moving platforms. That being said, the enemy placement is fantastic, offering tons of opportunities for sneak attacks, jump attacks, javelin tosses, and purely optional side paths filled with loot. The levels start off small and linear, then gradually open up with more paths and secrets as the game progresses. The last set of missions, when your build is complete and you have all of your tools, feels awesome to explore. Things don't get too easy though, as the devs test your skills with tougher enemy encounters and elites. When people say the level design is bad, I don't think they mean objectively bad, just repetitive and kind of bland, which is fair, but what really drives this home is the side quests. They always reuse the same levels with little to no variation, which exacerbates the criticism. I'm okay with side quests reskinning bosses, or throwing you into gang fights and boss marathons, but rerunning the same level? Not a fan. I'd much prefer these quests to focus purely on combat, maybe a buffed up boss with higher material drop rates, or entirely new level mechanics. If we get a sequel, I hope Kazan gets the Elden Ring treatment. Crouching, jumping, and even crazy shit like throwing your javelin and teleporting to it. Add a dash of Metroidvania to the mix if you know what I'm saying. All in all, Kazan is a 10 out of 10 for me. It's my first time buying a game at launch for full price, and I'm not fucking rich, so that wasn't an easy decision. But I don't regret it. In fact, I'd do it again. This game is made with love. Everything oozes quality and passion, from how bug-free and optimized it is to the little details, like bomb-throwing Dragonkin panicking when cornered. Did you see that? He ran into a wall. He was like looking around him. Man, I love this game. Such awesome details. It's made with respect. Respects you, the player. Devs listen, patch quickly, take feedback, apply it. They care about your enjoyment, and they made a fantastic game. My game of the year for 2025 so far. Yes, Kazan does have its flaws. The teleport system should be accessible anytime, anywhere, not just from the hub. Some boss materials for armor crafting are a hassle to farm. There's a mini leveling system hidden within Kazan's memories, and the UI for it is absolutely terrible. Some players might miss it entirely. But none of these flaws ruin the wonderful experience the devs have created. As it stands, I'm looking forward to more playthroughs with the dual wield and spear, and I'm excited to see how the devs implement community feedback moving forward. What I'm looking forward to the most is a sequel announcement. An evolution on this formula that irons out the kinks and introduces new, fleshed out mechanics might just produce a game that redefines the genre.